Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Back again with our daily Ole Miss transfer portal update as they land another commitment in the portal and former Tennessee and Oklahoma safety Key Lawrence. And what I love most about what you're getting in Key Lawrence is a versatile defender in the back end. And in a modern day of college football where you're trying to get so multiple in your defense and give the opposing offenses so many different looks, having a guy like Key Lawrence that can play so many different roles in a defense is absolutely massive. Taking a look back at his snap counts from Oklahoma in the 2023 year, 149 snaps as a box defender. You had another 168 as a free safety in the back end. 60 snaps came at that slot nickel corner role, and then 20 out on the boundary. And this guy has the frame, the physicality, the tool set to do a lot of different things in a defense. And what's worth noting here is Lane Kiffin and this Ole Miss staff, going back to last year in the portal, were really good at their evaluations in terms of talent and grabbing guys in the back end in that portal cycle. Or you look at guys like Zamari Walton, John Sanders, Chris Graves, they landed a lot of guys in the back end in that secondary that were really good for Ole Miss. So you're kind of trusting their evaluation of some of these guys in the back end this year as well. Key Lawrence, the most recent. Before we get into that and talk a little bit about some other updates and prospects Ole Miss is gunning for in the transfer portal, just want to say thank you to you guys and a shout out to the Ole Miss fans. We've been talking a ton of Ole Miss football on the transfer portal trail the last couple of days. The amount of support you guys have shown the boys has been absolutely amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the updates, enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Doing my best to keep up with the portal Kin Lane Kiffin and update you guys with all the roster moves. It's been busy. It's been a blast. And let's get into Key Lawrence. A guy that, again, first thing you like is versatility. The second thing you like is he's played a ton of football, right? Going back, he was a top 100 recruit coming out of high school, committed to Tennessee. The last 3 years at Oklahoma, 157 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, 13 pass breakups, and 3 interceptions. So you're getting an experienced guy who's also versatile in that back end. Really intrigued to see how they use a guy like Key Lawrence because he can do so many different things. He's got that big physical frame to be a box safety and kind of being a presence in the run game, but he has the athleticism to play in the back end in space and make plays on the football as well. And continuing with the theme with this Ole Miss defense, they're just continuing to get bodies that look like an SEC defense. And we've talked about this on past episodes. The first couple of years for Lane Kiffin, they were winning games. They were winning games with the offense. This last year with Ole Miss, and what was special about this year, going 10-2 and seemingly really closing the gap in between those teams in the upper echelon of the SEC, is this Ole Miss defense has been really good, and it is continuing to improve. And you take a look at some of the other guys they are targeting and they've already gotten in the transfer portal. Like guys like Walter Nolan, Princely U. Ole Miss is swinging a very big stick in terms of transfer portal recruiting, and that is probably what excites you the most. As long as Lane Kiffin is the head coach of this Ole Miss program, you know the quarterback play, you know the offense is going to put up points. What is going to continue to close that gap between Alabama and Georgia, really the only two teams that I would put Ole Miss like behind in the SEC standings right now, especially heading into 2024 with the roster that they are seemingly going to have, is getting that defense right and getting that defense with high-end SEC caliber players. And you're seeing them do that, whether it's in the high school class, bringing in guys like Perkins, or whether it's in the portal. And I think that's worth noting too, going to this 2024 class and taking a look at what they are going to bring in. They've already been extremely active in the transfer portal, right? Landing high quality players, right? Chris Paul Jr., the star stud linebacker from that Arkansas program, a guy that just makes tackles, goes sideline to sideline. A guy like Tavion Nicholson, who we talked about, a ton of juice in terms of man coverage at Illinois. I think he could be a very quality starter in the SEC at that cornerback role. Guy like Lewis Moore. You go at a guy like Jerquan Scott, who was very coveted in the transfer portal. Those are 4 really high-quality guys added into the portal. Key Lawrence is the next, but for all the criticism Lane Kiffin gets from maybe not paying enough attention to the high school trail, you take a look at him. He's bringing in a top 20 class from the high school ranks as well, right? Kamarion Franklin, one of the more coveted defensive linemen in that class. You obviously have Deion Smith coming over from the JUCO ranks, one of the more electric wide receivers from coming out of high school and the transfer portal rank. And you continue to scroll down and you just have a ton of quality guys, especially along the line of scrimmage. Both sides, Kamarion Franklin, William Eccles, Jeffrey Rush, Cameron Beavers. you can tell this Ole Miss team is getting better along the line of scrimmage. You know the talent on the outside in the quarterback room, it's going to come to Oxford. What you wanted to make sure you're doing is developing the line of scrimmage, and that is exactly what Lane Kiffin and this Ole Miss program are doing. And taking a look at what they're continuing to try to do in the transfer portal, I mean, the number one prospect in the transfer portal, Walter Nolan. It seems like Ole Miss has the inside track on Walter Nolan's recruitment now. That one is going to be one that you would probably think drags out a little bit. Walter Nolan, again, one of the more coveted prospects, the most coveted prospect available in the transfer portal. But for Ole Miss to get him in on a visit and make some inroads on him, that's massive. You take a guy like Princely Yu, the most talented edge rusher from the Florida Gators. He's considering going to Ole Miss. He was on campus. So you look at what they're doing on the defensive line at the point of attack. You're really excited about that. And since we've last talked about Ole Miss, you can add a few more targets to this list sticking in the SEC here with Tyler Barron. This is a guy that, I mean, if you were to ask me, would I rather take a guy like Tyler Barron or Princely Yu? That would be a toss-up. I mean, like, obviously in an ideal world, you land both, but having the ability and kind of being in both of these recruitments at such a high level has to fire, we got to get this ad out of here, has to fire this Ole Miss program up. And you take a look at a guy like Tyler Barron over his career at Tennessee, again, at the SEC level, 27 tackles for a loss, 13.5 sacks. In 2023, he had a 16.6 pass rush win rate with 31 quarterback hurries. Those are some of the best numbers that you'll see, not only in the SEC, but in the entire country. He's on campus for Ole Miss. And you take a look at what he does in the run game. This is probably my favorite stat about Tyler Barron, kind of doing a little research on him. His average depth of tackle, meaning where he tackles players on average on the football field, 0.1 yards down the field. What does that tell you? He's winning at the point of attack. He's stacking and shedding blocks, and he's being a presence in the run game at and behind the line of scrimmage. This Ole Miss team continues to get better along the line of scrimmage. By far in 2023, that was the best front seven we've seen from Ole Miss. And you project it going forward into 2024, returning some of those guys and potentially adding a guy like Walter Nolan, Tyler Barron, Princely Yu. I mean, it's probably going to get better. And then you take a look at another guy in the SEC, and Tamarion McDonald, who I kind of comp to a very similar to Key Lawrence, a guy that does a lot. He's probably more of a box defender as opposed to someone who can play much in the back end, but a guy that's going to be a nice physical body in that box, stopping the run and continuing to add depth and talent to that Ole Miss defense. And so you look at Ole Miss, and this is kind of where it gets fun for the Ole Miss fans. In 2024, that seems where this all adds up in terms of that's going to be a special year. You got Jackson Dart. You got Trey Harris. You got Quinshon Judkins. You got Caden Prescorn coming back. Returning most of the impact guys on the offensive side of the football from a really good Ole Miss team in 2023. And then on the defense, that by far the best defense we've seen. Pete Golden did a phenomenal job, and it only seems like they're getting better. And they'll lose some guys to the NFL draft and to eligibility that were playmakers. You can tell Ole Miss is making a very concerted effort at replacing those guys and potentially, in some instances, upgrading those guys. I mean, Walter Nolan would be an upgrade from anyone and that's no knock on anyone on Ole Miss's defense last year. That just tells you how special Walter Nolan is. Princely Yu and Tyler Barron probably would be some of the best defenders on Ole Miss as well. You take a look at what they're doing in the back end, adding a guy like Key Lawrence. You'll love that. Chris Paul at the linebacker spot. Don't forget about Perkins, who's going into year 2. That's when you normally see the jump. You look at this Ole Miss team on offense, you're very confident that they're going to score some points. And on defense, that defense continues to look like a top SEC unit in that conference. For Ole Miss fans, especially going to the 12-man playoff, I mean, this is I just texted with some of my boys yesterday and said, this is a team that's going to be competing for a playoff spot and potentially hosting a college football playoff game. That's how good I think this Ole Miss team can be in 2024, especially if they can close on some guys like Princely Yu, Walter Nolan, and Tyler Barron. Massive, massive things going on in Oxford, Mississippi. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm sure there'll be much, much more in the coming days. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.